optically scanned delegate list. The C is read as O, and vice versa. In District 10, there was no time to correct this before the state convention. So basically, they guessed. Okay, what do? You take it all credentials, right? Well, this process in District 10 failed. The floor in Tarrant 9, 10, and 12 did not ratify credentials reports because there wasn't any. The State Credentials Committee, in their hearing in Grand Prairie, didn't hear challenges to this. Many other challenges went in from by local committees, and the process was challenged at any level. The committees were silent. I wrote 3 challenges in 10 to the process, and none of them were heard at that temporary committee hearing in Grand Prairie. And I was told at state convention, one of them was rejected by the committee. The other 2 went off into the English. Okay, and this is why I wrote those challenges. In District 10, the Credentials and Nominations Committees met in unmarked rooms. Nominations Committee members were unsure of who the chairperson was, if any. Nominations reported at-large delegates to the floor at 4 a.m. Saturday morning. The Clinton at-large delegates were lost by the state party list keeper until 2 weeks before the state convention. This is just as important. In District 10, there was no effort to accommodate handicapped delegates. District 10-9 wasn't much better, even though the venue was much newer. Many District 10 handicapped called to say they couldn't even get into the hall, but they wished to be considered for at-large spots. These people's names were not kept or presented to the nominations committee. E, the crowd was very rude to campaign surrogates in Terrence 9, 10, and 12. This casts a pall over the credibility of the convention. David was talking about Judge Tax. I took pictures of that speech.
Wow.
It was beautiful. I'm done with the interpreter with notations on the back. I love that man. I was his delegate 2 years running. It was great.
I was too. It was amazing how many of us were.
But significant political figures are going to avoid our roots. Summing up in good order. Lots of people came, but most came for one thing only. There was not, and I can't stress this enough because we haven't talked about it, there was not enough money to do it right. Other Democratic candidates and issues were ignored. Elections in Tarrant, right after the district convention, revealed a gigantic voter drop-off. Other ways need to be found to politically motivate people. Get rid of Thanks.
Okay,
Who's on deck?
who else would like to speak? Yeah, Scott, come back.
My name is Scott Cobb, and I was one of the authors of the resolution at the state convention, which would have ended the two-step process as far as
And Linda was the other one.
Linda here was the other one. And we had about 50 volunteers at the state convention getting delegates and alternates to sign, going around asking people to sign it, and we ended up with like 2,400 people who signed it. We would have had more if we had a little more volunteers on the second day, but there's a large contingent within the Democratic Party who wants to end the two-step insofar as ending the 67 delegates that are chosen at the state convention. The 25 of those are party elected leaders, they're pledged party leaders and elected officials, and 42 are at large. Now, under our proposal, those people are elected right now based on the sign-in at the state convention, which is based on the sign-in at the county convention, which is based on how many people turn up for each candidate at the precinct convention. So what we suggested is to elect those 67 based on the statewide percentage of the vote. Right now, the 126 who are elected and allocated within the districts or based on the popular vote within each senatorial district. SD 14 has 8. We had the largest, not that we deserved it, but we had the most delegates to the National Convention. We had 8. Those were proportion between Clinton and Obama based on the percentage within SD 14 of the popular vote on March 4th. Our proposal is kind of an easy fix. Instead of the people at the state convention electing, or the nominations committee electing the remaining 67%, which is or 67 delegates, which is 35%, based on who signs in, they would do it based on the total vote. And that's my main problem with the statewide vote, with the system, is that it doesn't reflect the popular will. And there's been 2 highly contested elections in the 20-year cycle that we've been using the two-step, 1988 and this year, and in both years it was a complete 100% failure as far as reflecting the popular vote. Because you may not know it, but in 1988, Caucus won the popular vote in Texas, but Jesse Jackson won the caucuses, the precinct conventions. He had more people in the urban areas to go in there. It was relatively close, but it ended up where Jesse Jackson had more national delegates, because later on he was able to, his supporters were able to get together with the Al Gore supporters, and they elected more national delegates. Barely, but it was enough to not reflect the popular vote in the state. And this happened again in 2008. So two elections where it was still a contested election at that time, and 2 failures to reflect the popular vote. And my other big problem I attended my first one in 84. 84, they had caucuses. There was a big turnout. I remember it may have been bigger. We had 340 in our precinct this year. 240 for Obama and 100 for Clinton. Back then in 84, there was no primary. There was just caucuses, the precinct conventions. Everything was determined in 1984 based on the precinct conventions and the other conventions. And that's why they reformed it in 88, because everyone was so upset, because everyone was interested in 84. I'm going to go vote for the presidential nominee. Here I go off to my poll. Where is it? They're not even on the ballot. And people got very upset, and so in 88 they changed it to the 2-step system, and that's when they kept the hybrid system. They introduced a primary, gave them 67% of the allocation in 88, and that's when it first broke down as far as reflecting the popular vote. My other big concern has already been mentioned, and that is that there are barriers to attending it. 1988, I was in the Army stationed in Germany, and I had been a delegate to the state convention in 84, so I'm a big political nut, you know. And I'm sitting over there in Germany. I can vote by early ballot, but I could no way attend my caucus. And later on and I know in 96, my grandmother died, but she was like 82 when she died. In the last few years, she could never go out to the night of the caucus to vote, even though this year she would have loved to vote for Hillary Clinton, but she wouldn't have been able to. So that's really what concerns me, is people like that who can't come out to the caucuses, and we need to get rid of the apportionments, the 35% where we're demanding people to go at a certain time, spend 3 or 4 hours on caucus night in order for them to choose their president or their nominee for president. I think that's a burden on the voters, and that's why I think the committee that Linda's on, should recommend that we go to fully primary system, as I suggested. You could balance. There are various ways you could do it, but one way is keep the 126 as they are now, based on the primary results within the senatorial districts, and have the other 35% based on the statewide one. And I think that would prevent any not reflecting the popular vote.